everyone, this is Tina with Overall Adventures. It's so nice to talk to you and to be back briefly. I am currently in Nova Scotia, Canada, and I adore it. And I'm in this just darling Airbnb, and I thought, oh my gosh, it'd be such a great time to chat and to just, I don't know, reconnect. And I've been chatting with Robin at Talks from the Heart. I'll leave her channel info below. And she came to me with this like really good question that I've been mulling over for the past like 2-3 days. And I thought, this is a good video. This is something we need to talk about. So relax, it's just gonna be chatty, really low key. I'm just happy to be back and talking to you guys. So here we go. So Robin and I were back and forth about this idea of journaling in the good times versus journaling in the tough times. And she and I both feel similarly, and I'm sure if you journal you feel similar as well, that when things are tough, it's actually easier to journal. I don't know if you experienced this, but that's how I definitely feel. There's been times in my life, and you guys have followed, if you followed me for a while, you know what I'm going to be talking about, but where things have been really dark. And those times I turn to my journal, and I have used this for healing. And it's an incredible tool to pair with therapy or to just pair with like deep inner work. But when things get good, sometimes journaling can tend to get stale. And I just kind of want to talk about a couple things. So I used to say this, and it was so true, that I'm living in my journals, because when things were tough, I would turn to here and I would spend all my time living in this place. And I just don't, I think for the time it's what I needed, but now for me that life is much better and more stable and even. I find that my journaling practice has changed. At times it's frustrating because I'm like, I don't have anything else to say. Like, life is pretty good. And I find that when things are tough, I dive deep emotionally, but when things are good, I tend to return to like documenting, which I know some of you love documenting your life in your journal, but for me it just doesn't, it's just not my thing. I find I get like a little bored, I guess. I like diving deep in life, and that's just kind of my personality, I guess, but I also just, I don't know, it's like I forget, and then I get like all caught up in about how the journal looks, and the second that I start comparing my journal to other people, or the second I don't know, I just like, I get like, oh, I forgot to write about this trip. That's when journaling becomes a chore. So, and I just think it's kind of sad though, that like, for those of us that love journaling, and actually Luke brought this up this morning too, he's like, it's kind of sad if you love journaling so much, but it's only best when you're sad and having a tough time. And I'm like, wow, that doesn't feel right. That doesn't like sit right with me, that my favorite hobby is something that like works best when I'm blue. So I just kind of wanted to give you, I just wrote down a couple of suggestions or some things like to how to make it, how to like liven up your journal. And I don't know if you're in a place where you're like, oh, I just kind of need some refreshing life in my notebook. So yeah, let's jump in. So I had a list of 10 things. So I think the first thing is to come back to why you journal. If you're feeling like, oh, this is stale, or I'm getting bored with this writing, revisit your why. And for me, this is like really ironic because I was just revisiting my why this past week. Like, why do I do this? Like, why do I fill up these notebooks like again and again and again? And like, I genuinely have no idea why I do this. I just know that I need to write. I must write, even if it's just so boring. I swear, if you guys read these, you'd be like, wow, she's writing about the quality of her pen again. Like, but you know what, it's just, it feels good, and that's my why. But revisit your own, and hopefully that'll bring like new life to your notebook. You could also, I did this, sorry, I'm just excited to be back from, but go to a busy place. Like, we just went to this beautiful cafe this past week, so go to a busy place, take your notebook with you, and take notes on other people or other things that are happening at the cafe or in that location. I love journaling in the airport. I think it's so fun. There's so much to write about. There's so many like little nuanced moments that you can write about. This one is actually from my Instagram yesterday. I posted just a tiny little thing of like, what does July taste like to you? I find that returning back to my senses, I almost end up writing these like kind of like little poetry, prose kind of things. And don't put pressure on yourself to write something like good. Just write something about your senses. So what does this month like smell like to you? What does this month taste like to you? And I got some beautiful answers in the comments. Like July tastes like a summer breeze. July tastes like coconut sunscreen. July tastes like, oh my God, people had the best, some really, really good ones, like fresh linen sheets. So July tastes like blank, or August tastes like blank. I find that to be really juicy prompt. Nature writing is a good one. So if you go hiking or just kind of like a nature bath, go into the woods or go up by the ocean or go wherever you can near you and just kind of soak up and write that nature. So try to describe what you see. Those are some great prompts for happy days. Don't reread your journal. Do not go back and reread what you wrote. I find that in happy times, if I go back and read, I'm like, oh my God, this is so boring. This is so boring. And I always find myself wanting to like go back and read like the tough stuff, the tough times, and like, when I write and I'm in a happy place and I don't have too much to say, I just write and I move on, I move on, I move on. Oh, this is one that I just made a couple days ago as well. Things I want to learn more about, and take notes on those things. So like, I've been really wanting to learn the guitar and have been playing-ish or trying to teach myself via YouTube here, and it's just nice to take some notes on that experience. Like, hey, I learned, this G chord today and I felt really proud of myself, and like here, I can map out the hand placement or my finger placement on the guitar in my journal, because why not? And that's just fun to document some kind of new project, new learning. Future dreaming. I find, which is interesting, that when I'm in a tough place, I tend to think about the past. And when I'm in a good place, I tend to dream about the future. I don't know if you guys experience that. I don't know if that's like bad or unhealthy or whatever, but I tend to do that. So I use my journal as more visioning, which I think is fine and fun. So make a vision board in your journal. I have to say, telling you to make a vision board just feels like really hypocritical, because I am not a vision board person. But I write letters to my children, or I write letters to my future house, or my future goals, or my future friends, family members, So I find that to be really helpful, is dreaming in the future. But if you're into vision boards, you can do that as well. Just a general question that gets me excited is, what fills your soul up? So making that kind of list of like, what brings you joy, what fills your soul in these good times. And maybe that means stepping away from the journal. Maybe you don't write 15 pages a day, 20 pages a day. And that really brings me to this last point, which is just care less and write more. I find that as journaling, I don't know why, but we kind of either compare ourselves to other people or just feel like, oh, I need to write. I need to fill up X amount of notebooks in a year, in a season. And it's like, yeah, no, you don't have to write every day. You don't have to write anything good. You don't have to write anything pretty. You don't have to write anything that makes sense. You don't have to write really anything at all. If you want to write one entry a day, put the book away. If things are good for you and you don't feel like you need to write as much, then don't. But if things are good and you're drawn to coming to your notebook and writing, write whatever. I don't know, like, I just find it's like, the more that you think about like who's gonna read it, or if you can take a picture of it to put it online, or I don't know, it just becomes about other people. When the point of the journal, always coming back to this, is for you and your growth, your health, your restorative practice, your self-care. It's not about anybody else. And I think that's really important to remember. I think it's easy to get swept up in other things. So care less, write more, no matter what it is. And for me, it helps to not reread it. But for you, you might want to reread it. I find if I reread it, then I just end up judging myself. So that's never good. So let me know. Do you struggle with this idea of like, oh, journaling in the tough times is easier? And I definitely experienced that. And I guess what I've been doing, because like I'm on summer break, I'm a teacher, my life is freaking awesome right now. Like I finally get to rest, and I need that. And so the way that I've been coping with this feeling of like a little bit of boredom in my journal is like, I just forcing myself, like, not to overthink it, not to care too much, just like, yeah, okay, like, it doesn't feel great, like, maybe I'm a little bit bored by what I'm writing, but so what? Like, I still feel the need to write. I still love journaling and writing in a notebook, so what's the big deal? So yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to chat with you today. If you experience this idea of journaling in the tough times is easier versus journaling in the good times, let me know in the comments below. Let's kind of talk about this, because I think this is a bigger journaling kind of debacle I know a lot of people face. So I'd like to do more on this in the future. This is just kind of like my stream of conscious thoughts that I've been working on just for over the past few days. So thank you so much for joining me. I'm Tina with Overall Adventures, and I will